Chronicles, Fiction, The Apostle of Insanity Trilogy, Volume 2, Frenzy, by John Allen Price. Chapter 11.
Well, you look bright-eyed and online today,
Alvarez noted, when the warning knock on her door was followed by Hunter entering her quarters.
I should, he answered. It's now the middle of the afternoon. I must have slept almost 12 hours. Wendy, what are you doing here? Going over some of the revelations Pontius told us about last night, said Levine, seated at the room's small table, which was piled with many of her medical and psychological texts. We were discussing these spells the Dark Legion creatures can cast on us. We're trying to figure out if there's a way to neutralize them.
That depends on if you believe these creatures can actually do it. Hunter moved over to the table and glanced at the titles of the various books. I think some of it may just be what Jake said it was. Spook talk. Not even Porteous could claim everything he told us was factual.
I know, but it would go a long way in explaining why so few Dark Legion incidents are reported. It may also explain the reports of so many insanity victims found at the scenes of crimes and even military clashes. You remember the stories flying around of that assassination of the big-time Mishima officials? Said Alvarez, joining the others at the table. That many of their bodyguards were raving nutcases when the Lord Heir's police arrived. This could explain it.
Oh yeah, from earlier this year, recalled Hunter, snapping his fingers as the memory came back to him. I thought that was explained away as a cybernetic attack.
It seems everyone wants to blame Dark Legion activities on Cybertronic. If you haven't heard, the latest news reports from Heimberg are blaming them and Mishima for the Aquila attack. I wonder, who does Cybertronic blame when the Legion hits them?
The Brotherhood. Those two rarely get along. So, what have you two decided will help defend us against these spells the Legion has cast?
Except for the dark gifts Porteous claims can warp time and space, the rest must work on some principle of autosuggestion or mind control,
Wendy advised, closing the book she had been studying.
What could work against them might either be strong determination or certain strong emotions. However, the countering effects may only be transitory.
So your answer is get angry, stay angry, and kill them fast, said Hunter, glancing away from the books and catching sight of some framed documents on the nearby wall.
What are these, Julia? Original shares of capital stock? No, something I think is much more historically important, said Alvarez. Why don't you read one?
You're on. You think I can't read this old-style script? Hunter leaned against the wall and studied one of the frames before reciting its contents. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. This sounds a little familiar. What is it?
Constitution of the United States of America. The other is the Constitution for something called Canada. Together, they represent the foundations of the principal countries that eventually became capital. There was once a time in our ancient past when people pledged their allegiance to nation-states, not megacorporations, when the ideals of individual rights were codified under the law, when armed forces swore to defend the freedoms and interests of these people, not the corporate bottom line. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it's better than what we have now.
Some of what's in here is familiar, said Hunter, reading farther into the document. Now I know where parts of Capital's corporate creed come from.
A lot of what we say and do has origins in the past,
Alvarez replied.
Only we don't know it. They haven't taught ancient history in schools for generations, just corporate history. Does anyone know when we say, the real McDonald, that it refers to an ancient company of restaurants that specialized in serving hamburgers?
That's a rather trivial matter, but I understand what you're getting at. None of the megacorporations want us to know much about the past, especially our ancient past on Earth, where life may have been better before the great crumbling of civilization. How'd you come across these things if history is discouraged?
My father gave me these. His collection of ancient artifacts was divided among my brothers and me when he died. He told me that he could trace our family's military service back through dozens of generations to something called the United States Marines. Capital may not teach history, Wendy added, but they don't ban it or try to rewrite it, like Mishima or Bauhaus. The colleges teach some ancient history courses, and there are curiosity shops where you can buy items like those or replicas.
Curiosity shops, said Hunter, while Alvarez went to answer her phone. Things like these should be in museums. Perhaps one way to debase history is to turn it into something insignificant. Yeah, Julia, who is it?
It's Tim, said Alvarez, waving the handset at him, and it sounds urgent.
He's probably run out of hamburger. Like all quarters for officers below the rank of major, this one was tiny, and Hunter easily crossed it in a few strides. When he reached the desk, Alvarez tossed him the handset and returned to Wendy. Yes, Tim, what is it? What's new? Porteous. What did he call you about? The mystic's name caused Julia and Wendy to stop leafing through the textbooks and turn to Hunter. For the next few minutes, he gave only a few terse replies and hurriedly wrote whatever Small was telling him on one of the notepads scattered across the desk.
Well, what was that all about?
Alvarez finally asked when the telephone's handset landed back on its cradle. There's activity in the local heretic groups, said Hunter. Porteous is hiring Tim to help him watch the one here. But the informants the Brotherhood has in the groups indicate the main action will be at Atlantis.
That spaceport? What would the Dark Legion want there? Maybe another assassination, Wendy blurted out. Most Capital VIPs go through it instead of the old port at Athena.
No, Porteous doesn't think so, said Hunter, walking back to the table. The number of heretics being organized is not so large for assassins and a support team. He and Tim think they may be trying to break into the place.
What would they want from there? Said Alvarez.
The Brotherhood doesn't know. Try as they might, they can't look into the minds of those who control the legions. But whatever the heretics may be after, the only thing the Brotherhood does know is it's been ordered by their legion masters on Venus.
You mean that Nephirite thing Porteous told us about?
Yeah, apparently there's one on Venus, said Hunter, enjoying the surprised reactions. He may be the Nephirite who's reported to have escaped from Luna.
What are you going to do with this tip, Mitch?
Alvarez requested.
Stopping this operation would be a major coup for us, especially after being blamed for the failure of the ops we did yesterday.
What do you mean, us? This is an internal matter. I'll advise Judy Fowler about the heretics, and she can alert spaceport security.
Mitch, they won't be able to handle this. They're a private police force trained to stop smuggling and petty crimes at the ports. They're not us. They're not even Capital Security Service. At least they have access to regular infantry weapons.
And I'll remind you that we're a military force, Hunter protested, growing defensive. We can only act on orders from our local commanders or Venus Command. If we do anything else, it's illegal. You got away with stealing those Bauhaus dead, but we won't get away with conducting a private operation inside Capital territory.
But this is the Dark Legion, said Alvarez. They're more powerful than any organized crime family, more serious a threat to humanity than anything we've done to ourselves. Mitch, listen to me. The future of mankind is at stake. She could be right, Captain, said Wendy, trying to be diplomatic. This isn't an act of petty theft or even grand theft we've been warned about. It's an act of war. Covert war. What they once called guerrilla war, but war just the same. We're the only force who can stop it.
Hunter turned away from Julia and Wendy and stared at an almost blank wall, blank except for the framed documents. After staring at them for a few silent moments, he reached out and laid his hand on the American document.
"Let's contact the rest of the squad," he said. "Since we all keep our weapons and some munitions in our quarters, those won't be a problem. However, transportation will be. We'll have to work on that when we meet. Which will have to be someplace secluded, but far larger than this." "The gunnery range," Alvarez suggested. "It won't look unnatural for us to be packing all our weapons to it. This time of the day, there won't be many people in it, and it's right next to the base motor pool."
"Good point. Let's do it. If this blows up in our faces, I hope you realize Rebecca won't be able to save our asses. I doubt this will be something where we can get forgiveness in place of permission."
"Kyle, this is a surprise," said the woman who opened the door, "but a wonderful one. What are you doing here?"
Sarah Robertson planted a heavy kiss on her lover's cheek, then led him into her home by the hand. At 38, she was still some 15 years older than Kyle Mortus, though she did not look it, even when dressed in the sexless one-piece worksuit of her employer, Inner System Spaceways. In the living room, she gave him a much longer and more affectionate kiss, not allowing him to talk until their lips parted.
"What I came here for are your spaceport and company security cards and access passes to the ISS computer system,"
Mortus answered, a warm smile on his face, rapidly cooling into a mask of ice. "My friends and I need them."
"What? Friends?"
said Robertson, the soft gleam leaving her eyes.
"Who are these people?"
Robertson had not closed the door after greeting Mortus, allowing in nearly a dozen people, none of whom she recognized. By then, she had released Mortus and was trying to move toward the kitchen telephone without it being obvious. "I want them, my love," Mortus continued. "Now." As he spoke, he extended his hand, and Robertson staggered to her knees in pain. She landed partway on the sofa and tried to use it to get back onto her feet, but all she succeeded in doing was rolling down its length, all the while being tracked by Mortus.
What's happening?"
Robertson screamed.
"What are you doing to me? Stop, please!"
Her lover dropped his hand, not because of her pleas, but so much as the weakness he experienced in using his dark gifts against so strong-minded a victim. Within seconds of the pain's cessation, Robertson managed to stand and found herself hemmed in by a semicircle of strangers.
"What are you?" she added. "One of those monsters from the Brotherhood shows?"
"You can resist much better than I had expected," Mortus said, his ice-cold look somewhat negated by the sweat running down his face.
"We'll have to take what we need in a more typical way."
The gun he drew from under his jacket shocked Robertson. She had not felt it when she had embraced him, and in their year-long relationship, he never mentioned owning guns or even liking them. The weapon itself looked like a miniature version of the automatics the Atlantis Security Force carried, except for the extra tube on its barrel.
"Kyle, please,"
Robertson pleaded, when she realized the clicking she heard was the weapon's safety being removed.
"You love me."
"I also love those I serve." Mortus brought the gun up to chest height and pointed it in Roberson's direction. At the distance he stood from her, there was little need to aim precisely. "And they promise greater rewards." Unlike the sidearms used by the military or security forces, the automatic Mortus held was not 55 caliber, 10mm, or some other large bore. It was 25 caliber, a pirated copy of a Mishima target pistol with a shorter barrel and no foresight over the muzzle. Otherwise, the silencer could not have been attached. The first shot struck Roberson in the stomach, just below the ribcage. The next in the right side of her chest, causing her to spin into the sofa as she doubled up. The third hit her in the neck, below the left ear, releasing an immediate spurt of blood from the severed artery. When it smashed through the neck vertebra, it disintegrated, severing the spinal column, so Roberson crashed into the sofa and did not move from where she landed.
"Mortus, she's still alive,"
said Rich Dorr, when he noticed Roberson's labored breathing. In response, he drew his own weapon, a Bauhaus MP-105. "Don't bother finishing her," Mortus ordered, looking up from the handbag he was going through. "She'll die soon enough. If we haven't found what we need in this or her bedroom, we can search the body later when it won't bleed on us so much."
"Kyle, the time,"
said another heretic. Monica Lewis checked the chronometer on her wrist, then held it up for her leader to see its flashing display.
"If you delay us any further, we won't have time to make this look like a robbery."
"Don't worry. If we can't do that now, we'll have someone come back later to complete it. Wait, I have them. Check to see if these are the correct ones. Shane, check her bedroom just in case." The stiff plastic box he pulled from the handbag, held several credit card-size security passes, each emblazoned with the logo of either Atlantis Spaceport or Inner System Spaceways. Also in it was a slightly smaller file card, on which all the latest computer access codes for the Spaceline's flight vehicle maintenance and repair department. Upon finishing a cursory exam of the small tract home, Mortus ordered his group to leave it. He never looked back at it or the body of the woman he had repeatedly claimed he loved. Instead, his eyes and attention were now focused on the spaceport, visible beyond the residential area where the home was located. For the most part, Atlantis was a vast field of ethereal lights with only a few of the largest buildings and tallest launch towers discernible in the otherworldly glow. "How fast are you pushing this thing?" Hunter asked, finally returning to the driver's cockpit.
135 clicks an hour, said Parker, glancing up at the LED displays mounted on top of the windshield. "I know she can do more, but I don't want to push her in this traffic." The highway connecting Roswell to the capital communities along the coast of the Equatorial Ocean was a wide 4-lane affair. 1,000 yards on each side of it were the high-speed rail tracks that constituted the principal mode of transportation for most of the people in the region. This usually left the highways lightly traveled, except for now. The coming weekend meant those who had leisure time were going to spend it at Nova Miami or the other beach resorts, and seemingly all of them were jamming the northbound lanes at this hour. The bulky Imperial-designed riot wagon towered over most of the other vehicles on the road, and its drab military paint scheme made it an even more conspicuous sight. Despite its size, lack of aerodynamic design features, and 6 massive wheels, it was also the fastest vehicle using the highway. Parker was forever weaving it around the slower-moving traffic and honking it out of her way whenever it presented a temporary block. "Damn electric cars,"
Vanetti grumbled, glancing out one of the observation slits in the main hulls.
"Why can't these people use turbo trains or shuttle liners?"
"Because everybody has the right to use the most convenient form of transportation available to upset Leon Vanetti," said Shacker, enjoying the slow burn look he got from the demolitions expert. "Captain, when do we arrive at the spaceport?" "A half hour to 45 minutes, said Hunter. "That's if we don't run into more traffic congestion, an accident, or base security finally figures out someone's acquired one of their riot wagons and puts an alert out on us."
"Captain, what if we do run into an accident?"
Parker requested.
"Or a roadblock?"
"Go around it if you can. Imperial designed this thing for both all-terrain use and crashing barricades, so if you can't do one, try the other."
Think you should try contacting Julia and Taylor? They should have gotten something by now.
They should, said Hunter, glancing at the front instrument panel's tactical radio set. But no, we'll stick to our plan as agreed. It's a lot more difficult to steal an airplane than an armored personnel carrier. I'll open up a channel at the arranged time and let them contact us. I hope they can get something. I'd like to have some air support. You can never have too much of it, even in a situation like this. Continuing to weave sharply around the slower-moving civilian vehicles, the riot wagon maintained its illegally high speed. It almost kept pace with the turbine-powered train cutting through the groves of fruit trees some 3,000 feet off to the right.
Will this allow all our vehicles to enter?
Lewis inquired, when she handed over the Atlantis security pass to Mortus. Yes, Sarah told me how to program the toll bar terminal to admit more than one vehicle, said Mortus. Slowing their car to a stop, she and her co-workers would do it when there was a crush during shift changes. The moment he slipped the plastic card into the control post slot, he was tapping out commands on its keypad. An anxious moment later, the key re-emerged and the toll bar lifted. It remained raised until the last vehicle in the 5-car convoy had entered one of the many service crew parking lots dotted around the spaceport.
All right, you guys, how many times have we told you not to gang crash the entrance?
Said an overweight, tired security sergeant.
Hey, what gives with the street clothes? Where are your uniforms?
The sergeant and his assistant had reached the parking lot before they realized none of the people climbing out of the newly arrived cars were wearing the blue and white jumpsuits of the space line. At the moment they decided to go for their sidearms, paralyzing fear washed over them. Their bolter, heavy automatics, slipped from their hands, and they turned to run, only to stumble and fall. They never tried to rise. They barely had the strength to crawl out of the heretic's way.
You see how easy it is to use your dark gifts against the weak-minded?
Said Mortus, glancing at those who had been granted the power to invoke terror.
The rest inside the maintenance center will be just as easy. How long will they be incapacitated?
Asked one of the other heretics.
At least an hour, and for some, it's forever. Those with weak hearts will suffer cardiac arrest and die. I wish we could have time to practice our skills on them further, but the Master didn't send us here for that.
Inner System Spaceway's maintenance and repair center was a simple 2-story block house set behind the much larger storage warehouses and deport hangars. Because they relied on the spaceport security service, the company provided for none of its own security, apart from the pass cards. The terminal in which Mortus inserted Roberson's pass did not even have the capability of matching the identity of the person using the pass with the one to whom it was issued. Within minutes of entering the facility, the heretics had its entire staff cowering in terror, unable to think coherently enough to even press an alarm.
How many were here in total?
Asked Mortus, setting down at one of the several online computer terminals.
14 in all,
answered Shane Silva, the heretic who had led the assault on the second floor.
And all have been neutralized. Would you like me to help you with that? In my job, I work with computers all the time.
So do I. The terminal started beeping and flashed a message on its screen that there had been a mistake on the command input. This is just different from what I'm used to. You work in a livestock slaughterhouse. Where do you interface with computers?
I just do,
Mortus shouted, glaring angrily at the subordinate until the terminal beeped once instead of repeatedly. There, we're in. Now all I have to do is call up their inventory of spacecraft spare parts, and we'll soon locate what the Citadel needs from us.
Yes, Mr. Hart, how may we help you?
Said the desk sergeant at the Special Forces barracks, He only needed a moment to identify the civilian standing in his lobby.
"I need to see your log,"
Hart answered, grabbing the prominent book on the desktop and turning the volume around before it had been offered.
"I must round up the members of Squad Trident, and so far all I've been able to locate is their communications officer.
Last time we saw any of them was when they packed off their weapons to the gunnery range, and that was hours ago."
"So I see."
Hart stopped leafing through the log's pages and ran his finger down one column of names.
"And they all checked out within 15 minutes of each other. Didn't you think that unusual?"
"No, sir. We often get whole squad booking time at the range," said the sergeant.
"Didn't you think it unusual for a squad just back from an operation to want to fire their weapons again?"
"From what I heard, they didn't do a lot of shooting on that sortie. I'm not part of security or intelligence, Mr. Hart. If you want someone to answer those questions, why don't you ask the lieutenant?" The sergeant pointed at the latest arrival in the lobby. Judith Fowler was standing only a few feet behind Hart, yet he was not even aware of her presence until informed of it. She came to attention and saluted him when he spun around and immediately began her report.
"My watch officer said I'd find you here," she started. "There's been a break-in at a corporate hangar on the other side of the field, and a theft. I'm aware of the hangar's location,"
Hart said sharply, making the nervous lieutenant even more so.
"What was stolen from it, and who did the stealing?"
"Unknown, sir, but what they got away with was an executive transport helicopter, the Star Cruiser, sir."
What? That was the best in the whole fleet. Is the air defense net tracking it?" "Unable to do so, sir," Judith answered. "Whoever's flying it is staying just above the trees and has the ship completely blacked out." "What do you mean, whoever?"
Hart asked, his slow burn speeding up.
"If you won't say it, I will. This theft sounds like Hunter and his crew." "How could you be certain, sir?" "No one knew it was a theft until the helicopter took off." "Because the Star Cruiser is based on the Cutlass gunship. Only Special Forces pilots would be able to safely fly it. It sure sounds to me like one of them is flying it now, and there's only one unaccounted for. Alvarez."
"Why would they want to steal an executive transport?" Fowler asked.
"It doesn't make sense." "Why should it? This is the Special Forces we're talking about," said Hart, a vindictive smile beginning to cross his face. "Noah Wood can ask them when they're arrested. He wanted them sent to Athena. Well, now he'll get them. In chains. Put out an arrest alert for Mitch Hunter and all the members of his squad, except for Rogers." "Yes, sir. I'll do that as soon as I pick up my partner." "You mean Lieutenant Nordley? What's he doing? Why isn't he here with you?" "He's at the motor pool, sir," Fowler informed. "One of our riot wagons is missing." "Oh, and what next is going to be stolen from this base, Lieutenant?" said Hart, the tone of his voice calm but sarcastic. "An FA-99 fighter? The control tower? You'll find me in the operations center, if it's still there."
The highway's weekend traffic continued to be a hindrance to the riot wagon until reaching the Atlantis exit. There, most of the traffic continued, heading north while the security vehicle turned east and picked up speed. In minutes, the vast, glowing complex appeared. First in view were the launch gantries, vehicle assembly buildings, and the approach lights to the spaceport's 3-mile-long main runway. Later, the hangars, passenger terminals, and the control tower could be discerned from the smaller buildings, a seemingly haphazard and confusing arrangement to anyone driving up to it.
"Are you sure we're on the right road to the security annex?"
said Parker, trying not to sound critical.
"This time, I'm positive,"
Hunter promised.
"Captain, you're certain this is what we should be doing?"
said Benetti, leaning into the wagon's cockpit,
Roswell's gonna be missing this tin can by now. Suppose we drive up there and got an arrest warrant waiting for us. If we do, then we'll have to rely on your charm and Ted's diplomacy. This is the only way we can do it. None of us has any contacts here, and we scarcely know our way around the spaceport. It's the size of a small city, and we're not going to do much sneaking around in a military vehicle. If we can't be stealthy, we'll be obvious. Maybe we'll find out just how famous I'm supposed to be. The Atlantis Security Annex was a sparkling new building, a squat pyramid a few stories tall, with an exterior of polished bauxite and nearly indistinguishable black armored glass. The riot wagon slowed to a stop in front of its main entrance, which brought an immediate, if shocked, response. "Hey, I know you," said the first patrolman to reach the vehicle. He slipped his automatic back into his holster and snapped its safety strap over it. "You're that Special Forces guy I read about, Captain Hunter." "This may be easier than we thought," Hunter whispered to Parker and the others still in the wagon. "Yes, officer, you got me. Why are you greeting my men and me with your guns drawn? I was told you'd be expecting us." "You? No, sir, sorry. We weren't expecting anyone, let alone someone military." "God, they screwed up again," said Vanetti, picking up on Hunter's question. "I suppose we should be lucky we got here before they attacked. Otherwise, these guys would be firing on us." "We're going to be attacked?" asked the patrolman in front of his other startled colleagues. "By who?" "I need to talk with either your commander or your watch officer," said Hunter, trying hard to maintain a serious look as the bait was swallowed. "Whoever's on duty." "Well, Major Mullins retired for the night, but Captain Stewart's right inside." "Then take us to him. Obviously, there's been a mix-up in communications, and we'll need to work as fast as possible." Hunter and his squad were led past the metal scanners at the entrance and straight into the most sensitive offices before being asked to even show their identifications. Just moments before meeting the highest-ranked security officer at the spaceport. "If I were a suicidal assassin, this would be a perfect setup to destroy Atlantis' defense," Hunter said quietly to Shacker. "They haven't even asked us if our weapons have been safetied. I could cut everyone down with a single clip." "This isn't the military, Captain," Shacker replied, surveying the room. "Just a bunch of military would-bes and has-beens." "Well, we better treat 'em nice, or we'll get nowhere." "Yes, Captain. Thank you for seeing me." "No, Captain Hunter. The pleasure's mine," said Doyle Stewart, stepping from his office to the ready room, where the squad was being held. "We always get VIPs through here, but real war heroes are a rarity. I'm having our communications logs checked, but I'm fairly certain we didn't get the warning you claimed." "Don't worry about it," said Hunter. "I'll find out what happened at Roswell." "Oh, not a problem. It'll only take a few minutes to contact Roswell." "No, the violator units may already be in the spaceport," Hunter tried to keep the nervous out of his voice, and a smile spread on his face when his warning had its desired effect. "Violators? You mean Cybertronic chasseurs?" Stewart asked, stopping cold in his tracks. "What are they doing here?" "We don't know. All we do know is a Cybertronic Special Operations Unit is in our territory, and its target is Atlantis. Now, we just wasted a lot of time we don't have, so I suggest we get looking for them immediately. I'll put the spaceport on alert. If necessary, I'll stop everything, except arriving flights." "No, we can't let the unit know we're on to them," said Hunter, becoming exasperated with the misguided enthusiasm. "This isn't a gang of smugglers we're dealing with. It's a megacorp military unit. Let's start with the computer suite." Hunter pointed to the ready room's dormant computer terminal, which Stewart had powered up and online in about the same number of minutes as he earlier claimed it would have taken to put a call through to Roswell. He instructed the computer to do multiple tasks at the same time. Prime among them was ordering all substations to report in and sweep for any computer-related unauthorized activity. "Hold it, Captain," Stewart advised.
I got an anomaly in the ISS vehicle maintenance.
Spaceships, said Hunter, at first puzzled.
Now what would they be wanting there? Spare parts from the look of it.
Stewart nodded at the screen, which he was splitting between two separate files.
Spares are being removed from inventory, for which no request has been made by the repair crew. And not just any spares. We're talking critical engine. Wait a minute.
A shrill beeping sounded on both the Ready Room's terminals and in several offices outside. The immediate response was a lot of personnel running around, with some entering the Ready Room to ask Stewart what they should do.
It's like everyone just got official orders to panic,
Vanetti observed.
What gives, Captain? Substation 1701D hasn't answered the automated call, said Stewart, and none of its crew are manning it. No one can raise them. The station covers the ISS maintenance and repair centers at their warehouses. I think we found your violators, Mr. Hunter. We better move fast.
Mutant Chronicles, Fiction. The Apostle of Insanity Trilogy, Volume 2, Frenzy, by John Allen Price. Chapter 11. End.